Well, it's a little late, but we finally have 2020 goals. Hey everyone, Jason here, and today I finally finished up setting some goals for 2020. We're 3 or 4 weeks in now, so definitely late on that, but better late than never. So last vlog, I actually shared what my 2 to 3 year vision board looks like, so you can check out a link in the description to check out that video. But what I wanted to do here, talking over myself, is to connect that big vision with an actual project plan. And I was going through a lot of books, binge watching a lot of YouTube videos, and there didn't really seem to be a lot connecting the vision board to an actual project plan. So this is going to be my attempt to do that. One of the influences or books that's been really helpful is, of course, The One Thing, really focusing and making sure that every single plan and every single goal that you set is sequential to your ultimate vision or goal. So that was the inspiration for this process. Just wanted to share that with you because I found this book really helpful, and I don't want to pretend like I made this up out of thin air, right? So let's go ahead and jump into my Evernote. So last time I showed you this vision board here. So now what I want to do is take this vision board and actually start making some goals that I can begin to create a project plan around. So when we scroll down here, you'll see that I have my 4 digital business quadrants, and I have a set of questions that you can ask for each one. Now, I went through a lot of different ways of looking at my vision board and then trying to come up with actionable goals. And at the end of the day, this one seemed to make the most sense. And so I actually start with the product quadrant. So I look at my goals because at the end of the day, when it comes to being a business owner, your value that you bring to the world in terms of your content and your product is what's ultimately going to drive your success, right? All the other stuff is simply supporting you bringing value to the world. So I thought, hey, why don't we start with the product quadrant. So in terms of all of your goals on or everything on your vision board, what kind of goal can you set for your product in terms of revenue for your product, number of customers, price points, number of products? All those questions I think are the first ones you should answer, because ultimately when it comes down to how you support everything else on your vision board outside of kind of health and how you spend your time, it's ultimately going to be, what are you selling? So here are just a couple of questions that you can ask to figure out what your 2 to 3 year product goal would be, and then you start moving up. So based upon how many customers you need or how many products you want to have, then what kind of sales process do you need to have in place? How many people do you need coming through your sales funnel? If you already have some data on like your conversion rates, your click-through rates, you can kind of project here. If you don't, then it's kind of a shot in the dark, and that's okay, because you'll see when we get to our 1 year action items, you'll see that it's not going to be a big deal if you don't specifically know. And that was the biggest part of this, because there's so much that's unknown when you're building something new. So it really doesn't make sense to have all of your goals specifically number based. So we're going to turn these specific numbers into actions that we hope will get to those, but I'll get to more on that in a little bit here. So with your sales funnel, use data if you have it. Otherwise, just come up with some estimates of how many people you think running through your funnel in order to get the number of customers and sales that you're looking for. Then on top of that, we have content. So how big do you want your social media profiles to be? How many visits does your blog get? How many views do your videos get over on YouTube or Instagram likes, or whatever you're doing on Snapchat or Pinterest? Just kind of general numbers of what you think, how much attention do you think you need in order to get an X number of people into your funnels versus X number of people actually converting. So it is kind of like a funnel moving down. And then finally, team. Who do you need on your team to make all of this work, right? Because you definitely don't have more than 16 hours in a day, more like 10 work hours in a day to get all this done. So you're definitely going to need some help with this. And also, if you've done your ideal day exercise or you have a specific number of hours that you want to work, then this is where you're going to need to add more people to your team as a goal so that those hours can come down. So then that's kind of like the big someday goal, is where you're looking at your vision board and you say, okay, how big or what size does my business need to be in order for this vision to actually be reality and make sense? And a quick note before we move on, when it comes to revenue numbers, remember that your gross revenue for your business is different than what you are actually getting paid. So as a good rule of thumb, take 70% to keep in the business for operating expenses and growth, and then assume that you can take up to, at max, 30% of your gross. So let's say you're making $10,000 a month, well then only plan on taking $3,000 for your personal expenses and your actual lifestyle. So that's just a good rule of thumb, because we want to make sure that there's plenty left in the business to actually continue to grow. Now, when it comes to setting your goals for the year, I found very little information on how you take your big someday goals and then actually break them down into something that makes tangible sense in the here and now. So I thought using the 80-20 principle would make the most sense, and based upon studying other businesses, generally has a hockey stick style growth, which means the first couple of years you're just down here and you're like, I'm doing all this work and nothing's happening, and then all of a sudden it feels like an overnight success. Just based upon all the books I've read, if you have a different experience, you can change this percentage. So for the 1 year goal, whatever the numbers are for the someday, which is the 2 or 3, I simply take 20% of it and make it, that's our goal for this year. I think that's extremely aggressive, but it's also not so crazy that you can't actually hit it, because we do need to have some small dose of reality with our goals, even if we're being really big. And then this next part is the real kicker. I think this is where I failed as an entrepreneur the first couple of years, is because I would stop here. I would have goals that were based on revenue, based on results, as opposed to based on action. So what you need to do with your 1 year goals is transform them into a list of actions you think you need to take or your business needs to accomplish in order for those goals to be met. And these have to be things that you actually can control, meaning the number of videos you post, the number of blog posts you post, the number of phone calls or sales calls you make, or how much time and effort you put into your membership site, or how much time and effort you put into improving yourself in terms of whatever your skill or service is. So these have to be things that are actionable and measurable in terms of output and deliverables, right? So if you were hiring a freelancer, you wouldn't just say, hey, I think I'll just pay you X amount a month and hopefully one day you get the result I'm looking for. Of course not, right? When you hire a freelancer, you hire someone, you say, you have X amount of hours and I need this number of things done, this number of widgets created, this number of posts or videos created, or this number of cold emails sent out. Whatever it is, you need this to be actionable and deliverable, because this is the part where you can take responsibility for your action, which is so important when it comes to actually creating your goals. I was just lost in the wilderness for years because I kept stopping at the 1 year mark saying this is going to be my big goal, and then not having any tied actionable responsibility to that outcome. Because this way, if you accomplish your actions, you accomplish your deliverables, and you still don't meet that number goal, that simply means that you were wrong in terms of your estimate, as opposed to you failed as an entrepreneur. Because we're almost always going to have big goals that don't come to fruition, but as long as you can point back at your calendar, at your timesheets, however you track, and say, you know what, I said I was going to post this much this year, and I actually posted this much this year, you know for a fact you are on the right track, and you just have to put in more work, or you have to go in a slightly different direction to get the number that you want. So hopefully that makes sense. So that's the big gap that's bridging the big gap between the vision board and your project planning. So now what you want to do is go ahead and take all of these actions, and we'll go over to my other note here, which is where I start breaking down the goals. And so you'll see at the top here, I have the list of actionable deliverables and goals. We're going to get to prioritizing in a second here. And then what you want to do is, you can follow my model, you can come up with your own quadrants, right? Is for each quadrant, you start breaking down what are the big milestones to hit those goals in 6 to 12 week cycles. Personally, I like I like doing things on quarters. Other people like doing things on 6 weeks or a month. I think a month is as low as, or short a time period as you want to go. So typically when I go through this process, it's for a quarter. So we'll scroll down here, and just as an example, I'm going to use the content quadrant. So for our particular goal, if we wanted to post 150 videos for the entire year, then we'd go, or 200 blog posts for the entire year, we'd start breaking down, okay, so how many videos do we need to post this quarter? How many blogs do we need to write this quarter? And sometimes it's going to be disproportionate, right? Because this quarter we're going to be a lot less because we have to go hire some writers. So we're going to have more written later on. So it doesn't always have to be broken up evenly. I think that's really important that you remember that sometimes you have to take a quarter or two to build up, sharpen your axe to actually start cutting down that tree. So for the product and sales funnel quadrants, again, you want to be specific with actual actions. So with your sales funnel goals, it will be based upon maybe the number, how much money you're going to spend on your funnel, or specific parts of your funnel or advertising that you need to build. This is not a place for saying, hey, I want to hit a particular cost per conversion rate, or I want to hit a particular click-through or view rate, or whatever kind of KPI you have. This is not the place. You really want to keep this focused on the actual actions you are going to take, or the actions someone on your team is going to take, which leads me to the last quadrant, which is team. Because as you fill all of this out, you might start getting overwhelmed going, oh my gosh, how do I do all of this? And the short answer is you can't, because as an entrepreneur, you're always going to have this big vision. You're always going to want to do 20 times more than you actually personally have time for. And so this is where the absolute hardest part comes in. And that's where you have to prioritize and delegate, or simply just pause if you don't have the budget to delegate, right? So the first thing you need to do is look at all of this and ask yourself, of everything I'm looking at, if I could only accomplish one actionable item across all 4 quadrants, I'll get to what to do with the team quadrant in a second here. All 4 quadrants, you could only do one thing over the next 6 weeks or quarter or month, depending upon how often you're doing this, which one would it be? And you put an A1 next to it. And then with your one thing time, hopefully you have 2 to 5 hours blocked out in the beginning of your day where you focus on your one thing. Well, that's what you're going to focus on in that time block. And then you will go at it really, really hard until it's complete. And it's okay if you have other things you want to complete. Of course, you still have to run your business. You still have other responsibilities. But when it comes to your one thing time, whether that's an hour in the morning or you're more full-time in your business and you can do 3 to 4 hours in the morning, you focus on that one thing. And then only after you've completed that and you can check that off, do you go to the next priority. So here typically what my business and partner and I do is we look at this and we decide what our one things are going to be, and then we use David Allen's getting things done method of A1, A2, B1, B2. Actually, it might be Stephen Covey. I'm getting confused. I'm gonna have to look that up and put a little lower third there to say which one, who actually made that up. But essentially you prioritize so that you know exactly what you should be focusing on. And if you got nothing else done, that's okay, because you're focusing on the one thing that is most important. For me personally, it's still creating content. So content is always A1 for me. And then my second priority, if I'm able to finish all the content that I need to for the month or quarter, then actually one of the new products that we're making, it will be my A2. Typically, I found though, if I go A1, A2, B1, B2, B2 is the most I've ever gotten to in a quarter, typically just because we're so aggressive. Now, when it comes to everything else, you may be wondering, okay, well, I have all this other stuff that still needs to be done, right? And this isn't including things that you have to do to keep running your business. That's the other half of your workday. So what you can do is in the team quadrant, you can start assigning people on your team to have their one thing be one of these other parts be one of these other tasks in your quadrant. So you don't have to do this alone. Now, obviously, if you don't have the budget for a freelancer, you don't have a budget for a team, then those things simply won't get done, but that's okay. Every other entrepreneur is doing something similar to this, and they're looking at everything that has to be done and they're going, I can't get all of it done, or we don't have the budget to hire someone to get all of it done. So you're not alone. It's always going to feel like there's more to do than there's time in the day. That is normal. What's most important is you don't let that distract you. You prioritize your one thing, and because you've got started from your vision board, you know with confidence when you wake up every morning and you do that one thing that it is directly correlated to that little puzzle piece in your vision board that you need to accomplish in order to bring that entire vision into reality. So thank you so much for watching. I sincerely hope you got some value out of this video and this process made sense. If you have any questions, please comment below. I'm still reading and replying to every single one. And I do really want your feedback on this because this is something I'm not only developing for myself, but of course I'm developing it and sharing it with you because this is something that has kind of driven me nuts in the past, and making sure that vision is connected to what we do in our business day to day. And in the next vlog, I will actually take another step, and this will be filled out, and I will show you how we take our quadrant goals here and actually start to create an actionable project plan that we act on each and every day throughout the quarter. So thank you so much for watching. Go ahead and hit that like button, and until the next, keep building the business you love.